Well, good morning. It's great to be here again. And as Pastor Rob was just saying, you have been partners with us for about 26 years. And I want to say a great big thank you for that, because you are one of our original group partners when we first started in the missions. And we are so grateful. I remember the first time I came to your church, we were back down the street and on the other side, up on the hill. And so it's been a few years since we started coming here, and it's just great to be here today to say thank you very much for standing with us for all of these years. I would like to introduce my wife. This is Dar, and we just celebrated 39 years of marriage and been hanging out for over 42 years together, so kind of know each other a little bit. And so we just still keep running around together, you know, doing all this missionary stuff. But we have 3 children, and our 3 children have decided to do a very interesting thing, and that is that one's on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and one in the middle of the country. You know, that's where they decided to settle. So, you know, they couldn't have done much worse. So now when we come back to the States, it's where do we go to visit our kids and our grandkids? We've got 5 grandkids too. Well, I want to tell you a bit about what we do in the Netherlands. And we've been in the Netherlands for about 6.5 years. This is a picture that you see of a windmill. And most of you that know anything about the Netherlands knows that windmills are very much part of their history. This is just showing you our picture. We're real people, and been 26 years on the field. We were 20 years in Belgium. Most of you remember, if you've been around much, Continental Bible College or Continental Theological Seminary. We spent almost 20 years there until God moved us to the Netherlands, where we spent 6.5 years, all on one term. And we've just returned not too long ago for our furlough. The focus of our ministry has been twofold, especially this last term, in ministerial training men and women for ministry, and then in church planting. And I'm going to tell you about both of these in just a few moments. I just want to ask the question, how many of you really know where the Netherlands is? Now, how many, if I were to say, do you know where Holland is? Okay. Some of you do. The Netherlands, or as it is sometimes referred to as Holland, is a small country that is just west of Germany and north of Belgium. So it is part of Western Europe. Now, a lot of people ask me, why is it called the Netherlands, or why is it called Holland? Why do you have 2 names? Well, there's actually 2 provinces in the Netherlands called North Holland and South Holland that actually have one of the greater portions of the population of the country, and has most of the significant history that has happened in that particular area of the country. And so it's kind of become the part for the whole, you know, the smaller part of the name Holland for the whole of the country. And so a lot of people just refer to it as Holland, even the Dutch do. So they call it Holland themselves. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about the Netherlands. I call it the Netherlands, if you don't mind. It's a very interesting country. It is a small country, has about 16 million people, a little over 16 million, and it is all in a very small space. Now, to give you perspective, you can put 10 Netherlands in California. Now, you all know California is a pretty good-sized state, but you can put 10 Netherlands in California. And so we've been doing a little bit of traveling as missionaries, and you know, we started moving. We've realized California really is a big state. You know, when you start moving north and south and east and west and so forth. The Netherlands is a very densely populated country. There are about 400 people per square mile. Now that is really densely populated. Now some people say, well, how can that be? It's such a small country. Well, a lot of the people live in the cities or the towns so that they can free up some of their land. But even so, there's a lot of people in a small country, and that's the bottom line. One of the interesting facts is that in the last number of years, the population of Muslims has grown to over 1 million in this country. And so it is a very interesting fact. I'll just mention this again in a moment. Amsterdam is the capital of the Netherlands, and most people, if you say Amsterdam, you get all kinds of interesting pictures in your mind. It is a city that if you are going to commute, the Dutch people will commute by bicycle. 40% of them will ride their bikes, and it could be 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 miles that they will ride their bike to go into work in the city. It's not unusual. If they don't do that, they'll ride on a tram or a train or a bus. They normally don't drive into the city. It's very expensive to park, and parking is very hard to find. So it's better to ride your bicycle anyway. This is just a picture of Amsterdam. It's a city that is built essentially on a lot of islands, 90 islands. There are 1,500 bridges and over 60 miles of canals on in this city. It is a city that was essentially reclaimed from the sea. Beginning back in about the 14th century, they began to reclaim land in the Netherlands, and Amsterdam was one of the first places. One of the startling facts about the Netherlands is that they call themselves a tolerant secular society. In other words, essentially they want to give everybody the freedom to do whatever they want to do as long as they don't bother anybody else. That's kind of the light version of it. And as such, the laws basically allow for a lot of things. And as Christians, we become appalled at some of the things that have actually become legalized in the Netherlands, like abortion on demand since 1995, euthanasia since 1973. And I should tell you that it's actually easier to euthanize your relatives than it is your dog in the Netherlands, because it just, the paperwork is a whole lot simpler. And so, that's kind of a startling thing. Prostitution, most people, when you hear Amsterdam, you automatically begin to think, the red light district and prostitution in Amsterdam. And it's very, very legal there. Gay marriage has been legal for a while, and drugs. Now, a lot of people think that drugs are legal, but however, they are not legal. They are tolerated, which means that they basically turn their head the other way, especially when it comes to soft drugs and marijuana. They just don't bother anybody. In fact, you can go downtown Amsterdam and buy your marijuana right there in the city and smoke it, and nobody's going to bother you. There are special places that you can go. Places called coffee shops. So just a little warning, if you ever go to Amsterdam, don't go to a coffee shop for coffee. That's where you get your marijuana. If you want coffee, go to a cafe. It's much safer to go there, okay? So now you know. A couple more interesting facts about the Netherlands is that in about the last decade or so, over 900 churches have been closed in this country. And in the next decade, about 700 more churches are scheduled to be closed. Now, when I'm talking about the churches, we're talking about mostly the Dutch Reformed, which is a multi-variety of churches, and the Roman Catholic churches. They've been closing these as fast as they can. 66% of the Dutch people are not sure if God exists or not. And this is a startling fact when you stop to think about a country that was a front runner in the Reformation. They were very involved in spreading the gospel around the world for hundreds of years. And yet today, as we look at the Netherlands, we are looking at them as a people who need God. In fact, only 4% of the country is evangelical Christian. Now, I'm going to jump back to the Muslim population for a moment. 6% of the Netherlands are Muslim now, and yet only 4% evangelical. So when we're looking at this nation, it is truly a post-Christian nation. It is a nation that needs God. It is a nation that needs a move of God and a revival to sweep across that country. And so this is where we are in the Netherlands. So what have we been doing? We have been involved in Bible school training of young men and women for ministry at a place called Azusa Theological Seminary, where I've served as a vice president and teacher there. And this is just a couple pictures, one of our graduations. And this is me giving a diploma to one of our students. He's actually the first student that graduated in our English department. We brought an English department into the school, and they've done Dutch for 40-some years, and then we started English, and he's the first one that graduated with his bachelor's degree in English. This is a group of our international English students, just to give you an idea. And this is me. Just want to show you that sometimes I really teach, and I'm not just on vacation in the Netherlands. And this is a group of our students in one of the classrooms that we have. And this is me with one of our students named Elias. And I just want to briefly tell you about Elias. He's a very interesting man. He immigrated to the Netherlands more than 20 years ago as a businessman. And Elias gathered together with some other Ghanaians, he's from Ghana, and they began a Bible study group. And his Bible study group kept growing. And one day they said, well, maybe we should have a church. And they thought, well, if we have a church, who's going to be the pastor? And as they were in that Bible study group, they just started looking around, thinking, okay, who's the pastor? And they pointed to Elias. Said, okay, you're now our pastor. And so they began to keep on, they kept on growing, and they did start having church services, and the church grew. And one day, Elias heard about our school, and he came to my office, and he said, Jim, here's my story. He told me what I just told you, and he said, I don't know what I'm doing. I really need some help. He said, I came here as a businessman, and now I'm a pastor, and I don't know what I'm doing. I've never had any Bible or theology training, and I need your help. Can I come to school? And so Elias started coming to school as a full-time student. He was a full-time pastor and also working full-time, but he came to school as a full-time student so he could get his training. And Elias will graduate this November with his bachelor's degree. And so we are proud of what God has been able to do in his life, and his church is growing, and God is using Elias. In fact, just several months ago, Elias went to a meeting of a Pentecostal church that he's a part of, about over 1 million people worldwide, and they chose him to be the general secretary of this movement for a worldwide Pentecostal movement. And when he came and told me this, he said, Jim, it is only because I've received all this really good training at your Bible school that I've been chosen to do this. So friends, we have students just like this that we are very proud of, that have done, that are doing great things for God. Now, I want to tell you about a couple of students that are actually sitting right here. So this is Sita and Vanessa. Please stand up. They are really Dutch people. They're from the Netherlands, from Holland. And they speak Dutch. Sita and Vanessa are some of our finest young people. They graduated from our school, and then we brought them back in to help us. And they worked with us at our school for a while, doing worship leading in our chapel services and so on. And Sita is working on his master's degree and is hopefully going to finish that very soon. But they have an exciting thing that they are going to be a part of. And this is one of the things that we are excited about in the Netherlands, and that is church planting. They, along with one of our other missionary couples, are going to plant a church in a city called Hoofddorp, which is right next to the Amsterdam airport, beginning very soon after they get back to the Netherlands. And so we are proud of them, what God is doing in their lives, and the door that He is opening for them. We've also been working at ministry in a church. Now, about 6 years ago, there were 12 of us that gathered together to pray about planting a church. It was another missionary couple, my wife and I, 2 of our former students, and 3 international couples, because we wanted to plant an international English-speaking church in the middle of a city called Hilversum. Hilversum is the media capital of the Netherlands. This is where all of the media stuff happens, and it is a very international city. And so we thought this place needs a real voice from the evangelical community, Pentecostal community, to be there. And so we prayed about it, and our group started growing, and it kept growing. And we started having 50 or 60 meetings just in our core group, 50 or 60 people in our core group meetings. And we then began to plan the launching of our church. And we set that for Easter 5 years ago. And we opened our doors for our church on that Easter Sunday morning, and 500 people came to our very first service. Friends, God has opened a door for us to reach a lot of people in this city of Hilversum. This is one of those churches that was closed. It was a Dutch Reformed building. It was closed, sat empty for 9 years. And we came along and asked the city that owns it, can we rent this building from you? And they said, oh, of course you can rent the building. And so we started renting this building. And about 3 or 4 months later, they said, oh, you don't have to pay rent anymore. And so we've been in this building for over 5 years, rent-free. Now, there's some things going on as to why they let us in there and so forth. But because there was a grocery store chain that wanted to buy it and tear it down, and there was a neighborhood group that wanted to keep the building, and they said, no way, you're not going to tear it down. And finally, the grocery store chain pulled out, said, we don't want it anymore. And the city came to us and said, would you guys like to buy this building? Because we didn't know how long we would be able to stay in it. And now they're saying to us, would you like to buy this building? And so they've offered us this building for $700,000. It is worth millions of dollars. And so if anybody has an extra $700,000 they'd like to help us with, we'd be glad to take it from you. It is a great building. It seats 500 people. And we've got some Sunday school classes and some offices and so forth. You can see it's just a beautiful old building. And we thank God for the opportunity we have to be right in the middle of this city where we are reaching people with the gospel of Christ. And I'll tell you about some of those in just a few moments. This is me helping to baptize some of our new converts, along with Sebastian. This is the man who was our former student and his wife, and we have now made him the lead pastor. And this is one of the things we like to do as missionaries, is go and help to raise up men and women to be pastors, and then to encourage them and work alongside them. And so he is the lead pastor of our church now. Y'all like coffee? Well, do you know that the Netherlands has a lot of good coffee? Yeah, they like coffee there. And cheese. And there's a lot of cheese. You might know the Gouda cheese. That is a famous cheese in the Netherlands. You know, lots of people like cheese. How about tulips? Do you know most of the tulips that are imported into the U.S. come from the Netherlands? And wooden shoes. Yeah, a lot of people think of the Netherlands. You think, well, they wear wooden shoes over there. Actually, the farmers still wear the wooden shoes. We've got a farmer friend who says he loves his wooden shoes. Now you're probably going, why are you telling me about this? Well, I just wanted to tell you about those things because here's what I'd like to ask you to do. Whenever you have a cup of coffee, or eat some cheese, or see some tulips, or wear some wooden shoes, would you remember to pray for us, Jim and Dar Rossi in the Netherlands? We need your prayers. We need you to continue to stand behind us in prayer. And to help you to remember us a little bit more, we have prayer cards. And we would sure like for you to take one of these prayer cards and put it in a prominent place so you can remember to pray for us on a daily basis. And we will appreciate it very much.